All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's begin. So we're back in Parsha. I'm focusing a little bit tonight on Parshas Bo. So what I'd like to try to focus on, there's a lot to focus on in Parshas Bo, and very often the focus is on the remainder of the Makos. The focus is on some of the initial mitzvos that are given to us by the Ribbon Shalom, the mitzvah HaChodesh HaZalochem, first of the new month. Many different beautiful ideas, Karban Pesach, Pidyon Bechar. But actually, I want to focus on the very opening pasuk in the parasha. So the pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem Moshe bo el Paro." For this Baruch Hu says to Moshe, "Come to Paro, ki ani ichbarati es libo, for I have hardened his heart ve'esliv avadov, and the hearts of his servants, leman shisi ososai ela bikirbo." Literally translated, in order that I may place these signs of mine in his midst. So the Mefarshim ask a very simple question, which is, if the Ribono Shel Olam has already told Moshe Rabbeinu that he's going to harden Paro's heart, which means that there seems to be no possibility of Paro changing his mind, that there seems to be no possibility of Paro letting the Jews go, that there seems to be no possibility of Paro yielding to the Ratzon Hashem, so why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu sending Moshe Rabbeinu on a mission which is doomed for failure? What's the point of sending Moshe to Paro with repeated messages of let the people go free, emancipate the people, if it's clear from the beginning that Paro is not going to yield to this request? So this is the question we're going to try to focus on a little bit. Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach Moshe something, and by extension, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach us something. So the question becomes, what's the lesson, what's the message? So we'll explore a couple of different approaches. If you take a look at number 2, there's Naim Torah. Rav Suratskin has a beautiful insight, a simple insight, and the truth is, in number 2, his insight really is predicated just on a basic reading of the pasuk itself. So Rav Suratskin writes, he says, "V'hizbir lo Hashem sha'asa zos leman revos mofsav b'mitzrayim." So Rav Suratskin says, the truth is the answer is in the pasuk itself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, I want you to go to Paro, ki ani ichbarati es libo, I've hardened his heart. Why have I hardened his heart? Leman shisi ososai ela b'kirbo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says simply, I want to perform more miracles. I want to go ahead and do an even greater display of divine strength, of divine prowess. Here's the problem. If Paro lets you go now, then what? That's the end of the show. Right? If Paro lets you go now, that's the end of my miracles. That's the end of my makos. I need to show Klal Yisrael even a greater measure of divine prowess. Therefore, I have hardened Paro's heart. Kihema v'yidatem ki ani Hashem. Leman revos mofsav b'mitzrayim v'yidatem ki ani Hashem. And here, the Zamator introduces us to something very important, which is, what was the role of the Makos? What was the role of the Makos? So this, in and of itself, is a dramatic dispute between the Mefarshim. So you have many of the Mefarshim, many of the commentaries understanding that the role of the Makos was to punish the Egyptians. And in fact, Rav Shamshon Fal Hirsch has a whole construct where he explains that each of the Makos correspond to some element of Egyptian servitude, of Egyptian slavery. That the Makos are not random. The Makos were specifically chosen in order to go ahead and remedy, in order to go ahead and punish the Egyptians for some type of infraction committed against Klal Yisrael. That's what Shamshon Fal Hirsch. Others say that no, which is what the Islamic Torah is driving at. The Makos were not just simply a punishment for the Mitzrim, but rather, again, they each were a theological lesson for Klal Yisrael. From each of the Makos, the Jewish people learned something different about the Ribono Shel Olam, learned something different about the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, by the way, it's not mutually exclusive, meaning the Makos could serve as a punishment for the Egyptians, while at the same time serving as a lesson, a dramatic lesson in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for Klal Yisrael. So Zaznav Torah says that's what's happening over here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, what I need the people to see is this tension. I need them to see you going to Paro, telling Paro, I come with the word of God, let the people go. Paro says no. And I want them to see a steel-willed dictator. And then I want them to see the strength of the Ribono Shel Olam to overcome the steel-willed dictator. I need the people to see that the divine strength has no end, that divine strength has no limitation, that the Ribono Shel Olam could overcome even the cruelest of individuals. But that dynamic is only accomplished if there's the back and the forth between Paro and Moshe. Moshe comes supplicating, Moshe comes requesting, Paro comes down with a hard fist, an absolute unequivocal no, and yet again HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and time after time after time tries to go ahead and convince Paro. Paro still says no. The Ribono Shel Olam's strength comes out and he's able to vanquish even the strongest dictator. So the Islamic Torah is quite interesting because now again what we see is the Makos are not simply about punishment of the Egyptians, but the Makos are there to instill the theology. Which theology? Of the greatness and the oneness of the Ribono Shel Olam. Now, interestingly enough, once you begin to look at this becomes a dominant theme throughout the parasha. If you take a look at number 3, so in the Sefer Berah parasha, he brings down something amazing. The Kach Ramzu Parshas on paragraph Aleph. This is what we see hinted to in our parasha. Set Tamim Zachar Ben Shana Yelachim. Talk about the Korban Pesach. So by the Korban Pesach, the halacha was that you have to bring an unblemished lamb that is 1 year old. Only one. Interesting. Korban Pesach has to be 1 year old, not 2 years old, not 3 years old, not a half year. 1 year old. Furthermore, bebayis echad yochal. You have to eat the Korban Pesach in one home. In one home. Not only that. Furthermore, ve'etzem lo sishberu bo. You can't break a bone. When eating the Korban Pesach, you can't break a bone. You can't break one bone into two. What's the common denominator? Right? 1 year old, one home, bone must remain intact. The common denominator, of course, is 1. And therefore, he writes something amazing. He quotes the Maharal. The Maharal says, Shekulu ledavar echad mechuvanim. All of this is here to teach us one basic lesson. Shebesipur yitzias Mitzrayim, yashvish ha'adam heitev b'mocho v'libo, she'echad Elokinu b'shamayim uvaretz. The goal, ultimately, again, of the entire Egyptian experience, I should say the goal of the entire redemption experience, is what? To reinforce within the heart of the Jew that there is one Ribono Shel Olam. There is one God. How do we reinforce the fact that there's one God? Because everything surrounding Yetzias Mitzrayim, the celebration of our Exodus, all focus is on one. The lamb is 1 year old, has to be eaten in one home, can't break the bone apart into 2 pieces. Everything is one. And he says something amazing over here. He says, keep paragraph Gimel, Kipamim niris hanhagas ha'adam kemi sheyesh chas v'shalom shtei rishuyos. Sometimes a person lives life and it looks like they believe in 2 gods. What does that mean? In binyana parnasa shu somich al ma'aseh yado o sheyovad eshtenosav kishenira lo sheish ploni yigrom ba'akifin li'ibud shaveh pruta mitzvaso v'lachein hu somich l'shma. He goes on to say, sometimes in a person's parnasa. So I say that parnasa comes from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. My livelihood, of course, comes from God, meaning in a theological sense, but in a practical sense, I need this one, I need that one. If this one wrongs me, this one took my profit, this one this. And I forget that there's only one Ribono Shel Olam. The Berah Parsha posits that everything around the Exodus was there to reinforce the notion of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And by the way, so to us that sounds pashut. It's pashut because we didn't just spend 210 years in a polytheistic, paganistic society. Remember again, the Egyptians were a polytheistic society. The Jews were surrounded not only by idolatry, but by polytheistic idolatry. If we're going to go out and to be a chosen nation, we have to reinforce within ourselves the notion of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if we bring this back, the Aznaim Torah says, this is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardens Paro's heart. Because why? He needs to be able to perform more miracles. What God is showing off, why does he have to be able to perform more miracles? Because through each of those miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed, the Ribono Shel Olam attested to his one-kite, to his oneness, by showing that he could do something that no one else could replicate. He reinforced within the minds of the people that the Ribono Shel Olam is one, and there is nothing else like him. Why does he need Moshe Rabbeinu to keep going back and forth? Because again, he needs the tension. Moshe Rabbeinu is a ruler, Paro is a ruler. One mortal ruler could vanquish another mortal ruler. But even the most powerful of mortal rulers, like a Paro, cannot stand up to the Ribono Shel Olam. Therefore, approach number 1 and understand this, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardens Paro's heart, he still sends Moshe Rabbeinu on this mission, which is doomed from the beginning. It's clear Paro is not going to listen. It's an interesting idea about the frustration that Moshe Rabbeinu felt. It's one thing to work hard. Nobody minds working hard. Well, hopefully, most people don't mind working hard. But to do something that I know is an exercise in futility, most of us don't have very little patience for that. I'm happy to roll up my sleeves and work as many hours as I have to, as long as it's productive. The moment I'm spinning my wheels, Moshe Rabbeinu is being sent on a mission. You're going to fail. You're going to get the people out. You're going to be unsuccessful. So why send him? Because this is a theological setup. HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to create the showdown between Moshe and Paro to show, even though Paro is strong and he could shut down a Moshe, nothing could shut down HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Ribono Shel Olam is the singular God. The Ribono Shel Olam is uniquely one in his power, in his prowess, and in his ability. That comes about through the showdown with Paro, that comes about through the Makos, and hence the need for the proliferation of Makos as well. Even though, again, remember, had God not hardened Paro's heart, Paro would have let us go much earlier. The Ribono Shel Olam needs the proliferation of Makos in order to reinforce the oneness of the divine personality in the hearts and souls of the Jewish people. That's the first approach. Take a look at number 4. The Rambam has a dramatically different approach. Rambam Hilchos Tshuva writes the following. He says, so remember again, everybody's focusing on the same question, which is, God, if you've already told Moshe Rabbeinu that Paro is not going to let the people go, then why send him in the first place? So writes the Rambam, Ve'efshar, sheyechta adam chet gadol o chatoim rabim. It is possible that a person could go ahead and commit a terrible sin, or many sins, ad sheyitein hadin lifnei dayan ha'emes sheyeh paro'on mizah chote al chatoim elu, shasa b'ratzono midaito, shemonin mimenu hatshuva, ve'in manichin lo rishus loshov merishaso kedesh yamos v'yova b'cheto she'asa. So the Rambam here says something dramatically amazing. So one would imagine Hilchos Tshuva is primarily devoted to which topic? Tshuva, excellent, right? Primarily devoted to Tshuva. And Tshuva is all about refining yourself. Tshuva is all about changing yourself. Except, says the Rambam, that it is possible for a person to go too far. It is possible for a person to sin to such a degree, to engage in such repeatedly depraved behavior, that what's the punishment for their inaction, for their actions, The punishment is the removal of the ability to repent. The removal of the ability to do tshuva, which we call the removal of what? Free will. So what the Rambam posits here, and this is a very dramatic Rambam, the Rambam says that sometimes a person behaves in such a negative way that the repercussion for their negative behaviors is the removal of free will. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm sorry, you've abused, if you think about it, right? A parent gives a child a certain privilege. If the child abuses the privilege, what does the parent do? What does the good parent do? You take back the privilege. The Ribono Shel Olam gives us a privilege of free will. If I abuse it enough, chas v'shalom, if I misuse it enough, chas v'shalom, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm sorry, I'm taking it back. He removes free, that's the punishment. The punishment for over abuse of free will is the removal of that free will. Tshuva, return, change becomes impossible. And who's the example of this? Lefichach, I'm in number 4 lines down. Lefichach kasa b'Torah v'aniachazek esleif Paro. Therefore, what does Kadosh Baruch Hu say? I will harden Paro's heart. Lefi shechata me'atzmo tchila ve'era l'Yisrael higrim hagarim ba'artzo shenemar havanischak malo nosan hadim lemnoa hatshuva mimeno ad shenifra mimeno. Lefichach hizek HaKadosh Baruch Hu es libam. I'm just going to read one more line. So again, therefore, Rambam says the paradigmatic example of this is Paro. Paro went ahead and abused his free will. Paro abused his bechira to the point that Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm sorry, your punishment is the removal of that bechira. Your punishment is the removal of that free will. And therefore, v'lama hayo sholeach lo biyad Moshe, v'amar lo shalach v'asa tshuva, u'kvar amula Kadosh Baruch Hu ein atam mishaleach. So at the end of the day, ask the Rambam our question. Okay, I got it. So if you abuse your free will too much, Kadosh Baruch Hu removes it from you, tshuva becomes impossible, change becomes impossible. But why send Moshe Rabbeinu to Paro? If Paro's free will had already been removed, why? Kedei lehodia lebaya olam shebizman shemalniah Kadosh Baruch Hu atshuva lechote eino yochel loshuv. To teach us an incredible idea, that when God removes your free will, even if you were to want to change, what? You can't. You can't. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Moshe, I'm going to test this out. Vaychazik Hashem esleiv Paro. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardens Paro's heart. Moshe Rabbeinu shows up and says, Paro, essentially Paro, What are you doing? You know you're going to lose this. Remember again in this week's Parshas, something dramatic happens, which is Paro's own advisors begin to turn one by one and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? The ship is going down. Let's jump onto the life rafts while there's still something left to salvage. Everybody's turning on Paro. So what's happening over here? Why doesn't Paro say, Moshe is trying to save me? Moshe's even giving me advance warning for the Makkos. My own advisors are turning on me. Why doesn't Paro say, enough is enough? And the Rambam posits, why? Why? Because he couldn't. Because he couldn't. He lost his free will. Vaychazik Hashem as Paro means the Yibon removed from Paro the ability to change, the ability to do tshuva, the ability to make a consciously appropriate decision. It says the Rambam, that's the message here. So how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu teach us this lesson? By Moshe confronting Paro, yet Paro seemingly having the inability, Paro being unable to change his course of action. He can't change it. He can't engage in course-correcting activity. Why? Because the Rebbe Shalom has removed his free will. So this is the Rambam's approach, which is a dramatic theological approach. That there are times when a person has sinned to such a degree, where a person has abused his or her Bechira Chavsh's free will to such a degree that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it back. And when God takes it back, here's the dramatic part. Apparently, it appears you can't re-earn it. Apparently, it appears you can't. Once you reach that point of no return, or actually, once you reach that point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away your Bechira, that is the point of no return, and that Bechira cannot be regained. A person dies in a state of sin, a person dies in a state of rebellion, and therefore says the Rambam, that's what's happening over here. Chodesh Baruch Hu sends Moshe Rabbeinu says, come back. Paro says, no, not out of his own free will, rather just the opposite, because the free will has been removed. Now, watch this. Take a look at number 5. So that's the Rambam. I'm going to show you now the exact opposite of the Rambam. Take a look at number 5, the Chidah. So the Chidah in Sefer Nachal Kedum, and I wrote a little biography over here. Quote for you a little biography over here. The Chidah of Chaim David Azulai. So listen to what the Chidah writes. Adayin haya bekocho la'asos tshuva. So here what the Chidah just says. The Chidah says, Paro still had the ability to do tshuva. Va'al kain shalach lahasros bo. So you understand this fundamental dispute that's happening over between the Rambam and the Chidah? So the Rambam says, Paro didn't have the ability to change. In fact, again, because he sinned so often, his punishment was the removal of his free will. He couldn't change if he wanted to. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu sent to Paro? Moshe Rabbeinu was sent to Paro to show that Paro literally can't change his mind. Even though Moshe is supplicating with him, his advisors are supplicating with him, Paro cannot change his mind. Paro has lost his Bechira, he has lost his free will, and therefore cannot make good decisions. The Chidah says just the opposite. Paro still had the ability to change his mind. Paro had the ability to go out and do tshuva. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Moshe Rabbeinu to Paro. To show him ultimately, says the Chidah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Moshe to Paro to teach him what? If Moshe is coming to you, then what does that mean? If Moshe is warning you, then what does that mean? That you have the ability to change your mind. That you have the ability to change yourself. Says the Chidah, but I know what you're thinking. How could that be? How could it be that Paro has the ability to change his mind if the Ribono Shel Olam explicitly says that I have hardened Paro's heart? HaPerish, sha'afa pi shani echbarti es libo, yesh lo od derech hatshuva. So the Chidah says something amazing. What it's teaching me is as follows: that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to Moshe, even though I hardened Paro's heart, Paro still has the ability to do tshuva if he chooses to do so. Paro has the ability to do tshuva if he chooses to avail himself of that derech. The derech of tshuva is open to him. So the question, of course, is, what does this mean? What does this mean? Because the Chidah seems to be contradicting himself. The way almost everybody understands, ki ani echbarti es leiv Paro, the ki ani echbarti es libo, that I've hardened Paro's heart means what? Means what? The removal of free will. The Rambam says it explicitly, but the truth is almost everybody else agrees with that understanding as well. There could be a question as to why God is removing Paro's free will, but everyone understands Ki ani ichbarati es libo is a statement to tell Moshe, Paro can't choose anything other than the course he is already on, which is the course of self-destruction. The Chida says no. Ki aniach parati es libo means I've hardened his heart, but tshuva is still possible. I've hardened his heart, but change is still possible. But Chida, excuse me, aren't you contradicting yourself? If God hardens Paro's heart, that means Paro, at least I think it means Paro doesn't have a choice. Yet you're telling me that despite the fact that God hardened Paro's heart, Paro still has a choice. What's the pshat? So take a look at number 6. The Nesiva Shalom. The Shalom Rebbe says something dramatically amazing. He writes in number 6 the following, 6 Aleph. He says the following. Do you know, is it not on the sheets?
I don't know, we're missing things.
Is everybody missing 6? Is there?
We don't have any numbers. We don't have any numbers. We don't have any olive.
Oh, that was on page 1.
Okay.
We don't have 6. And we didn't have the Chida.
Yes,
Oh, I
Okay.
didn't have that on mine, okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. I apologize about that. Something must have happened in the source sheets. Okay. Okay, so it is the section. I'm going to keep one of these by me so I see what everybody else is looking at as well. It's on we're on the second page now, right under where you have the biography of Chaim David Azulai. So right after that is a section of text. That's the Nesiva Shalom. All right, so let's just look at the beginning. V'yishlomer bazeh al das shematzinu begashmius. So the Shalom Rebbe says the following. He says, I could explain the Chida based on what we find in the material world. Sheyesh la'adam kochos tiviyim hayidum umukarim lo. So he says, if you look in the physical world, so a person has certain physical strength that he knows about. Right? So again, I know I could bench press X. I know I could lift this amount. I know I could run this distance. I know what my strength is. However, but each of us also has an additional reservoir of strength that is hidden. It's there, but often we're not consciously aware of it. That there are times where, in normal circumstances, I don't even know that I possess this additional reservoir of strength. I'm in that same section, 4 lines in. But yet again, in a time of danger, where I'm not able to save myself with just my normal strength and prowess, you know, we call this, what do we call it? Adrenaline, right? What happens on a regular day, so my capacity is X. Yet then when I find myself in an extreme circumstance, what happens? I find myself able to do things that I never knew I was able to do. And by the way, if I try to replicate it again in a normative situation, I can't. So the Nesiva Shalom says everybody has like these 2 reservoirs of strength. What we'll call it, there's the accessible reservoir, the normal reservoir, which is normal day-to-day strength, physical strength that I have. And then there's what we call the extreme strength, where there are difficult circumstances, extreme circumstances, allow me to tap into this reservoir that not only do I not normally tap into, but I didn't even know that I actually possess. He says, Ukimo adam ataveh, like someone who's drowning, chas v'shalom. Sheba'osa shah olim belibo kol minei ethos v'tachbulos ech linotzel, u'miskala bo kochos ne'alam bil tiyiduim. Right, a person is in an extreme, he gives an example of drowning. A person is in an extreme situation, they find themselves with abilities and with strengths that they never thought they had. Kimoke, and here the Rebbe makes an amazing observation. Beruchnius, yeshnam hakochos hativim hayiduim, v'yesh kochos al tivim bilti yiduim. So the Shalom says it's no different in ruchnius. In spirituality, each of us knows that we have certain spiritual strengths. I have the ability to do a certain amount spiritually. Yet, in extreme circumstances, I have the ability to tap into an otherwise unknown reservoir of spiritual strength. Shebe'es sakana ruchnius, misorim ba'adam kochos ne'elamim, shenata ba'akadosh baruch hu kedei sheyuchal limtzo la'atzmo derech. So he says something amazing. The truth is, this is a very dramatic example of this. But you see this throughout our history of the Jewish people, where you have people who during their lifetimes were not especially spiritually remarkable. Yet, were willing to give their lives al kiddush Hashem. Right? We have no shortage of examples like this. The Jews, we're examples of heroic spiritual activity. Yet the amazing part is that some people who are ridiculously spiritually heroic in extreme times, during regular times, were nothing to write home about. He says it's the same. So spiritual strength mirrors physical strength. Just like on a day-to-day level, I access a certain reservoir of physical strength, but in extreme circumstances, I pull out all of the stops and access a level of physical strength that I never knew that I had. The same is true in spirituality. On a regular day, I access the regular reservoir. Yet during times of sakana, during times of extreme realities, I accessed new levels of spirituality above and beyond what I ever thought I had. V'chein yeshno inyan zeh be'ofanei hatshuva. Yesh tshuva b'kochos ha'tiviyim, v'yesh tshuva al yidei ha'kochos ha'al-tiviyim. So he says something amazing. The same thing is true with tshuva. There are some people who do tshuva in a natural manner, and there are some people who do tshuva in a supernatural manner. What does that mean? There are some people who are able to affect change with the basic spiritual strength that they have access to on a day-to-day level. And there are some people who, in order to do tshuva, need to dig down deeper than they ever knew existed. Deeper, right? To find strength that they never knew that they had. But again, they dig down deep within themselves and they're able to access that reservoir of spiritual energy that not only I never accessed before, I never even knew existed. Haderach lahamshich ulaora kochos ha'elu al-tiviyim hi al yidei ha'emuna sheyesh liyehudi kitachlis ratzon Hashem, sheyesh liyehudi kitachlis ratzon Hashem misparochu lebal yidach mimenu nidach. So how do I access that deeper level of spiritual energy? How do I access that deeper level? And the Rebbe says something amazing. He says it is accessed through the emunah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu always wants me. At the end of the day, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me more than anything? What does every parent want from their child more than anything? To come home. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me more than anything? To come home. And it doesn't matter what I've done, and it doesn't matter how much I've messed up, and it doesn't matter how many bad decisions I've made in life. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants most of me is I shouldn't give up on myself. That I shouldn't give up on my ability to forge a meaningful relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That I shouldn't give up on my ability to find closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That I should never think for a second that because of bad life decisions, I am condemned to a life of exile from God. Mikoach ha'emunah hazos, gam kasher eino motze la'atzmo shum derech, shenimtza legamrei b'dei yetzer hara, ubikochos ha'atziviyim, eino yochal lehisgab ra'alav, yodehu uma'amim, Ki ratzon Hashem yisbarach hu leval yidach mimenu nidach. V'nata b'kirbo kochos ne'elam al enoshim. This is amazing. Says Islam or something, says in Sivasham something dramatically amazing. The Ribono Shel Olam wants me close to him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always wants me to be in a state of connection. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always wants a passionate and loving and fulfilling relationship between me and him. That's what he wants. And understood, because he wants that, he gives me the kochos, he gives me the abilities to forge that type of relationship. But one second. I know where I'm holding in life. I know the mistakes I've made. I know the rut I've gotten myself into. And I know that right now where I'm holding, I cannot affect a meaningful, beautiful, and passionate relationship with God. So Salam Rabbi says, so what's the answer to that? What's the answer to that spiritual conundrum? The answer is, try harder. Dig deeper. It's there. Whatever you need to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present in you. Whatever you need to go ahead and find your way back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is already there, and you might have to dig very deep. It might be way beneath the surface. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us that ultimately anything and everything you need to be successful. And by success we mean to establish and create a meaningful relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in you. It might not be what we'll call the accessible reservoir of spiritual kochos. You might have to dig down a little bit deeper, but the way to come home, the ability to come home, the ability to do tshuva, the ability to return, the ability to restore and reinvigorate that relationship with God is embedded within each of us. So look at this. Take a look at number 7. So the Rebbe quotes it in shorthand, but I'll do a little bit more longhand. He quotes the episode of Acher. We've actually studied this before. The Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan, Ma'aseh ba'acher shayrochev alasos b'Shabbos. So we know Acher is who? Acher is Elisha ben Avuya. Right? Why was he called Acher? Why was he called Acher? So the Gemara records a very dramatic story. I mentioned this in one of the past years, a very dramatic story where Acher, he has a whole, he loses his way and he loses his faith. Why that is, the Gemara has a couple of different possible narratives. But the Gemara tells a story that Elisha ben Avuya, who you have to understand was formerly the Gadol Hadar, comes and propositions a prostitute. He propositions a harlot. And she says to him, aren't you Elisha ben Avuya? You know, like even a harlot has standards. You know, even the harlot is not gonna, is the Gadol Hadar. You know, aren't you Elisha ben Avuya? So this episode occurs on Shabbos. So what does Elisha ben Avuya do? The Gemara says, Akar puglo mi mishra. He uprooted a radish from the field. Now, uprooting a radish from the field is one of the Lamites Malchus, one of the 39 prohibited categories of labor, right? And therefore, again, she said, oh, acher ata. You must be someone else. You must be someone else. You look like Elisha ben Avuya, you resemble Elisha ben Avuya, but you must be someone else. That statement of acher ata was such a dramatic statement that Elisha ben Avuya had undergone such a negative spiritual metamorphosis that he literally became someone else. The Gemara tells a story. Acher was riding on a horse on Shabbos. And Rabbi Meir was following along on foot. Now you have to understand the context, or the background to this is, when Elisha ben Avuya goes off the derech, everyone leaves him. When he goes off the derech, everyone leaves him. With one exception, his Talmud, his devoted disciple, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir realized that his Rebbe had so much Torah to give that he wanted to learn Torah from him. Furthermore, Rabbi Meir really didn't want to let go of Elisha ben Avuya because he thought Elisha ben Avuya would come back. So what happens? Can you imagine this scene? Elisha ben Avuya is on horseback. It's Shabbos Kodesh. Rabbi Meir is following along, and they're talking Torah. Amar lo Meir, chazor lacharecha, shekvar shi'arti be'ikveisu siyat kan tchum Shabbos. So suddenly Elisha ben Avuya turns to Rabbi Meir and says, Meir, you have to turn back because I've been keeping count of the steps we've been taking, and we are right about to leave the Tchum Shabbos. Remember, Tchum Shabbos is the Shabbos boundary. You're only permitted to travel a certain amount. So can you imagine this? Elisha ben Avuya is keeping count of the steps. Meir, you have to go back now. Amar lei, af ata chazer b'cha. So Meir says, it's such a beautiful, he says, Rebbe, come back with me. Let's go back into the Tchum, so to speak. Let's go back into the boundary. Let's go back into the community. Let's go back into Klal Yisrael. Together, come back with me. Amar lei, v'lo kvar marti l'cha, kvar shamati me'achori ha'pargud, shuvu banim shom minchutz me'achar. So Elisha ben Avuya responded in a dramatic way. He says, I would. He says, I would. But you know, every day a bas kol, every day a heavenly voice comes out from above and says, Shuvu banim shovavim. Return, O wayward children. Return, O wayward children. Because Baruch Hu invites us to come back to him. No matter, it's like spiritual amnesty. No matter what I've done, no matter how bad I messed up, God says, I understand you're wayward, I understand you messed up, just come back. Just come back. But Elisha ben Avuya says, when God says that, he adds in a caveat. And what's the caveat? Chutz me'acher. God says he wants everyone back, but me. So even if I would want to come back, the Rebbe has already made it clear that what? He doesn't want me back. So the Mefarshim discussed this idea that if indeed HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, Shuvu b'nu shom chutz me'acher, if God was inviting everybody but Elisha ben Avuya to come back, then how can Elisha ben Avuya be held accountable for not returning? Let's take a look at number 8. You have 8 on the sheet over here? Yeah, but it's the wrong 8. It's the wrong 8. Turn the page. Oh, 5. Good. Fantastic. Good. So you see, this is all, I numbered it al pi Kabbalah. That's always, it's always a good answer. So take a look on the 3rd page, the last piece over here. So the Gemara says over here an incredibly dramatic statement. Kol ma sheyomar alecha balabayis aseh chutz mitzeh. Whatever the balabayis, right? Whatever your host tells you to do, you should do, except for leave, which is an interesting idea. So you're a guest at someone's house. If they tell you you should bench, you should make kiddush, you should sit, you should clean, whatever they tell you to do, you should do, except if they tell you to get out. Which I don't know exactly how this plays out, like on a Metziastic level. But if they tell you to leave, you don't have to leave. You don't have to leave. So just as an aside, some of the Mefarshim bring down the idea that this was a rabbinic enactment in the aftermath of the Kamsa Bar Kamsa story. Right? Remember again in the Kamsa Bar Kamsa story where the host ordered Bar Kamsa to leave, and as a result he was humiliated. Chazal said, you don't have to leave. If you're invited to someone's home, even by mistake, and you're there already, you have to do whatever they tell you, but you don't have to leave. Okay. The Shlach Kodesh says something amazing. Take a look. It's on your sheets, number 7. It's the 3rd page, the 2nd source down. B'shem Sefer Reishis Chachma. Balabayis Hainu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Shla says so beautifully, who's the balabais? Who's the ultimate balabas? The ultimate balabais is the Ribbon Shel Olam. So what is the Gemara saying? Whatever God tells you to do, you have to do, with one exception. Chutz mitzeh. She'im yomer lecha tzei mi beisi va'al tikonis ke'inyan alisha acher al tishmalo elo tikonis b'tshuva ki ze chashko shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu elo shemata oscha. So the Shla HaKadosh says something amazing. He says, we're conditioned from the time that we're young. You have to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, you have to listen. So I'm going to drop a bombshell on you right now. You have to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu except for one time. There's one time where you don't have to listen to God. When don't you have to listen to God? Says the Shla. Whatever the Balabas, whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you to do, you have to do. Chutz mitzeh. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, get away from me. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I don't want anything to do with you. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you can't do tshuva. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're broken beyond salvation. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm sorry, you're too defiled and you're too sullied and you're too messed up from all of your averos, I want nothing to do with you. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that to me, I have the right to say, I hear you, but I'm coming anyway. I hear you, but I love you anyway. I hear you, but I'm coming back to you anyway. I don't care what you have to say, God. I don't care that you're telling me to get out. I don't care that you're telling me that you don't want me. I don't care that you're telling me that I can't have a relationship. I don't care what you have to say. I'll tell you why. Because I want the relationship with you. And as long as I want it, even if you don't want it, ready or not, here I come. Ready or not, I'm finding my way back to you. Says the Shla HaKadosh. That is the power, and I would venture to say the chutzpah of the Jew. Whatever I'm conditioned, I listen to God, whatever He says. Chutz mitzeh. If He tells me to get out of His sight, if He tells me to get out of His shamayim, if He tells me to get out of His daled amas, if He tells me to get out of the relationship with Him, I don't have to listen. But rather, again, if I want to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my life, God, I don't care what you want. You'll excuse me. I don't care what you want. If I want a relationship with you, then I have every right to make that a reality. Even if you cry up and down, I don't want it, I'm done with you, Silber, you've done enough, you've abused this, you've done this, you've misused your gates, your bechira, all these, I don't care. I'll take it under advisement, but I'm doing my own thing. I'm coming back to you. I'm coming home to you. I'm coming to reconnect with you. Writes the Rebbe number 10. Oh, you don't have 10. It's the section underneath 7. He says, V'hainu, shahaya alav ladas, ki ratzon Hashem labal yidach mimenu nidach, u'perush chutz me'achar hainu sheba ofen tivi. So I'm sorry, so let me just finish this up. So by the way, this was the mistake of Elisha ben Avuya. It could be that God was saying, Shuvu banim shuvim, return wayward children, chutz me'achar. Could very well be that God was excluding achar from tshuva. Why was God excluding achar from tshuva? Why? So first of all, it could be because God was upset with achar. He was upset with Elisha ben Avuya. But we're going to see it's something so much deeper. Where the Kadosh Baruch Hu was telling achar was something dramatically amazing, which was what? Achar, I'm telling you not to come home. I'm telling you not to come back. So what should that have created with an achar? I have to dig deeper in myself to find the strength to come back. Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling me He doesn't want me back. I know that's not really true. I know God deep down that even though you say you don't want me back, you do want me back. I have to find the kochos within myself to get back to you. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, says the Shla HaKadosh, says the Nesiva Shalom, by saying chutz mi'acher, it was an invitation to dig deeper. It was an invitation to reach inward. It was an invitation to ultimately find the embedded kochos you have within yourself that you have not even discovered as of yet. Yes, I'm crying out, everybody could come back, chutz mi'acher. And the way Elisha ben Avuya, I expected you to respond to that disinvitation, if that's a word. That disinvitation is, oh God, you don't want me? You don't want me? Well, I want you. I want you. And I'm coming back. How am I going to get there? Where I am right now, I have no idea how I'm going to get back to you. But I know that I have the ability. I know that there are reservoirs of spiritual strength that I have not yet accessed. When Elisha ben Avuya heard chutz me'acher, that was God throwing down the gauntlet. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? Are you going to give up? Which unfortunately is what Elisha ben Avuya did. Or are you going to say, Rebbe Shalom, Kol ma shetomer lecha balabayis aseh, I don't have to listen to you. Chutz misei, I don't have to listen to you. Instead, I'm going to dig deep within myself and find those abilities to come back. Aval hayatzarach, I'm in that section. The source right after number 7, 3 lines in. Aval hayatzarach lis amitz ulaha'amin bakochos ha'altivim sha'al yadam yuchal lashuv. But rather, again, what Acher should have done was dug deep within himself, found the abilities to return. Tamid yesh li Yehudi derech lashuv v'gam ki atzia sha'ol ha'anach. So the Shlom Rebbe says something amazing. A Jew always has a path back to God. And we're going to see why it's not just Jews. A person always has a path back to the Rebbe Shalom. It might not be paved, right? It might not be straight. It might not be clearly discernible. And it might require me to access a whole bunch of spiritual skill sets that I don't even yet know I have. But look at the next section. Va'al pizeh mavor inyan paro. Therefore, says the Shlom Rebbe something amazing. Shava pishech baratias libo. Even though Parai hardened your heart, adayin yesh as derech hatshuva al tivis. He explains the words of the Chidah. Remember what did the Chidah say? The Chidah said that even though God hardened Paro's heart, even though he hardened his heart, at the end of the day there was still a derech of tshuva. But the difference was, it wasn't the derech hatshuva hativis. It wasn't the derech hatshuva that could be achieved ultimately through natural abilities. Rather, al karchach shalach HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahasros bo sha'adayin yesh lo derech ubekocho lashuv. This is dramatically amazing. Says the Shlom Rebbe something so beautiful. Kadosh Baruch Hu hardens Paro's heart, and everyone thinks like the Rambam that the hardening of the heart means what? The hardening of the heart means the removal of free will. Says the Shlom, no. What it means is the removal of free will, b'derech hateva. The removal of free will in the natural order of things. But a person has the ability to transcend themselves. A person has the ability to dig deeper within themselves and find kochos and find abilities and find strength that I never knew I possessed. But how do we know Paro had that ability? That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Moshe Rabbeinu. See, God hardens Paro's heart, removing from him the pathway to tshuva, what the Shlom Rebbe calls hativi, the natural form of tshuva. But he sends Moshe. Why does he send Moshe? Because if he's sending Moshe to warn Paro, what the message is that Paro, you are not beyond salvation. Paro, you are not damaged goods. Paro, you have the ability to lift yourself up and to return, but you have to dig deep within yourself and find those kochos, find that strength, find those abilities, and redeem yourself with those things. So says the Shlom Rebbe, this becomes the message. The message that the Torah Kedosh Rebbe Shalom is teaching us in the first opening pasuk in this parsha is that even though Paro, I hardened your heart, change is possible. The message for us being, change is always possible. Sometimes change is easily achievable. Sometimes change could be achieved through derech hateva, through normal natural means, which means through my normal everyday spiritual skill set. But sometimes change requires me to dig deep within myself. Sometimes change requires me to look inward, deeper in myself than I ever knew existed. Sometimes change requires me to access reservoirs of spiritual strength that I never knew existed. But the message being that change is always possible. There is no such thing as a person who is beyond change. And as such, again, from the opening pasuk, if we bring this all together, we emerge with three dramatic and, I would have to say, somewhat contradictory ideas. But yet the beauty in Judaism is that you can have contradictions and yet everybody's right. So what do I mean by that? So we emerge with three dramatic lessons. According to Yaznaim LaTorah, the dramatic lesson is the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is our job to always instill within ourselves the oneness of Hashem. We have to take a sad that's 1 year old. Karban Pesach has to be in one home. The bones can't be split into the two, all to reinforce the oneness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Moshe, I'm hardening Paro's heart, and you're going to go, and he's going to stare you down, he's going to say no to you. But even when he says no to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will demonstrate my autonomy and my mastery over him, thereby showing the people and reinforcing my oneness in the hearts, in the minds, and in the souls of the people. This idea of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so important. You know, we're spending a lot of time in this in the mornings when we learn Gan HaEmunah. The idea is that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that our success in life is dependent on other people. I might need other people to partner with me to accomplish certain things, but at the end of the day, my success is never dependent on another person. My success is dependent on two entities. Me, I have to put in my shtalos, my effort, but at the end of the day, there's only one entity who blesses my effort or crowns my efforts with success. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the singularity of the Ribbon Shalom. Every success I have in this world only comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pazis Yaznaim the Torah, all of that is learned by the proliferation of the Makos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls everything. The proliferation is only possible. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardens Paro's heart. Why send Moshe on a mission that is doomed for failure? To set up the tension. One human ruler could vanquish another human ruler, but no human ruler could ever vanquish God. And that highlights the singularity, the oneness of the Ribbon Shalom, which was a fundamental theological and spiritual building block for the fledgling Jewish nation. Lesson number 2 we learn from this, the Rambam. The Rambam says that sometimes Chas v'Shalom a person can sin to such a degree that what? That their punishment is the very removal of their Bechira Chavshus. The punishment, in the Rambam's words, their punishment is the removal of the ability to change. Their punishment is the removal of the ability to do tshuva. That sometimes if Chas v'Shalom I misuse my free will enough, then God forbid the Ribbon Shalom takes it away from me. And that is the ultimate punishment from which I cannot rebound. Once that tshuva is taken away from me, I'm done. That's lesson number 2. Comes on the Chidah, and the Chidah says, Rambam, you'll excuse me, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. Vayichazik Hashem esleiv paro, ki ani ichbarti es libo, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, I've hardened his heart, but tshuva is still possible. What does that mean? Isn't that a stira? Isn't that an inherent contradiction? No. What it means is as follows. There are 2 pathways to change. There's normative change and supernatural change. Normative change means I could affect change with the resources I have at my everyday disposal. It's just a question of making good decisions, just a question of focusing my energies in the right direction. But then there's supernatural change. What's supernatural change? It's change that which cannot be affected with my normative, bless you, everyday skill set. But instead, change that is only affected by digging deep down within myself, accessing and discovering strengths and abilities I never had. But the only way to access that otherwise hidden reservoir of spiritual energy is to make a decision that I want to change, I need to change, I must change. Sometimes in life, you have to, I often say, the death knell of any life initiative, the death knell of any life is, I'll try hard. Whenever someone says, I'll try hard, parentheses, I'll try hard, parentheses, but there is a high probability of failure. If you want something to happen in life, you don't try hard. You say, this has to get done. Now again, maybe it'll get done in the time frame I want, maybe not. Maybe it'll fully actualize in the way that I thought, maybe it won't. But if you want something to happen, failure cannot be an option. The moment you leave yourself a little bit of space for failure, failure becomes almost an inevitable reality. Change is always possible. Sometimes it's possible through the reservoir of strength that I have access to. Other times it's only possible by digging deep within myself. How do I dig deep? How do I access that reservoir? When I tell myself that I must change. When I tell myself that I must come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When I tell myself that even if I hear God saying, Shuvu banim shovim chutz misilber, even if Chas v'Shalom I hear that, I say to myself, thank you, appreciate it, noted, I don't care, God, what you have to say. I know that sounds terribly chutzpahdik. I care what you have to say in every single other area of life, but not this area. I'm coming back. I'm changing. I'm rebounding. I'm transforming. How am I going to do it? I don't know how I'm going to do it because I don't feel I have the necessary kohos. But if I tell myself that it has to happen, if I tell myself that change is a necessity, not that it's nice, not that I'm going to try, not that I'm going to put my best forward, all those wonderful cliche terms that people use as a code word for, I'm going to try, but I'm most probably going to fail. When I say this has to happen, there is no choice. Failure is not an option. Change must occur. Then suddenly I find the ability to access all different types of energies, all different types of kohos, all different types of abilities. The great tragedy is that even though Paro's heart was hardened, he had the ability to change. He missed that opportunity. And as a result, caused himself much suffering, caused his nation much suffering. And here lies the greatest tragedy of the human condition, because as we see, it's not just Paro. This was the tragedy of Elisha ben Avuya also. Elisha ben Avuya could have changed. Understand, by the way, you know what it means? That Elisha ben Avuya, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, when the last time you heard the bas kol say Shuvu banim shovavim, when the last time you heard the divine voice inviting you to come back, right? Yet Elisha ben Avuya is hearing it every single day. It happens to also have an appellation with it, chutz me'acher. It has an add-on to it. Elisha ben Avuya, you're hearing the bas kol every single day and you don't think you could change? See, the moment a person thinks that change is no longer a possibility, that's the moment that they effectively shut down all life possibilities. Acher loses out on the opportunity to return because he thinks change is not possible. Paro loses out on the opportunity to return because he thinks change is not possible. The Ribono Shel Olam records this story for us so that we don't make the same mistake as those who came before us. That we recognize change is always possible. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's virtually impossible. But even in those moments where it looks virtually impossible, everything begins with a commitment to change. And once there is that commitment, then there becomes the ability to dig deep within oneself, to introspect within oneself, and to be able to discover those reservoirs of incredible potential that we never knew we possessed. All right, we'll stop over here for tonight.